Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Today is going to be the last lecture of the week. Remember that tomorrow and Friday are going to be holidays. So I will not be having office hours tomorrow or Friday. And I will see you guys on Monday. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and get started with lecture 21, slope part 2. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be revisiting the formula from Monday, and we're going to be revising it, taking a look at it, and we're going to be using it in a different application today. So let's start off with the slope formula that we learned on Monday. So the slope of a line, you really have 4 choices. Your slope could be positive. If your slope is positive, then your line is going to be going up like that. You could have a negative slope, right? Negative. In that case, your line would be going down from left to right. So look kind of like that. And then you have the 2 special cases where you could have a 0 slope. It would look like this, just a straight horizontal line with no slope to it. That's what happens if you have a 0 slope. And then the last one is undefined slope. Undefined. This would be a vertical line. So it would look like that. Now, typically, when you have a positive slope, that means that your slope is going to be greater than 0. That means you have a positive slope. But you could also have your slope being negative, right? In that case, your slope would be less than 0. But if you had a 0 slope, your slope would actually be equal to 0. And for undefined slope, what would happen is you would have a number on top, let's just call it A, but you would be dividing by 0, right? And since dividing by 0 is not really defined, you can't divide by 0, so that's why we call it an undefined slope. Okay? So those are the 4 types of slope that you can see. And there are only 4 types when we're dealing with lines. There's positive, negative, there's 0 slope, and undefined slope. Okay? So now let's talk about the formula that we learned on Monday. The formula for slope. The formula for slope is m equals change in y on top over change in x on the bottom. And you're dividing change in y by change in x when you do the formula for slope. So if you have change in y, that's going to be y2 minus y1. That would be the change in y. But then the change in x is going to be on the bottom. You're going to have x2 minus x1. And this is for 2 points, or 2 ordered pairs, x1, y1, and x2, y2. So if you're given 2 points like that, on Monday, we figured out how to take this and put it in that formula, and it'll spit out a number, whether it's positive, negative, 0, or undefined. Those are the 4 options that you're going to have when you're finding slope. Okay. Now, we could also have it equal to rise over run. Rise over run. So rise is going to be on top. That's the change in y. So when we're dealing with change in y, when you look at the y-axis, that's the vertical axis, right? So your y-axis is going to be running vertically. And when you have a change in y, that means you're either going up going positive or you're going down, which means going negative. And then run is going to be at the bottom of the fraction. That's going to be your change in x, your x2 minus x1. And that's going to deal with the x-axis. And as you know, the x-axis is a horizontal line. And when we talk about change in x, that means you could either go right or you could go left. Now, if I'm going right, that means I'm going positive. But if I go left, I'm going negative. And same way with the y. You know, if I'm going up, that means I'm going positive. And if I'm going down, that means I'm going negative. So keep that in mind as we talk about slope today. Okay? So that's the formula for slope. We're going to be using that today. And let me put a star beside the word formula. Okay. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at graphs. We're going to be picking out 2 points from the graph, and then we're going to be putting it in this formula. Okay? So I'll leave this up there for about a minute so you guys can finish copying it down, and then we're going to take a look at some graphs. And the graphs that we're going to look at today, these are going to be the problem sets. The problem sets. So when you get to your classwork assignment today, it'll be 10 questions, it'll be 10 graphs, just like it looks like on the problem sets. And you'll be able to find those 2 points and then put them in the formula. Okay? All right, let's take a look at those graphs. Okay, so number 1, we'll be looking at the problem sets. And we'll be looking at number 1. So looking at the first graph, let me show you what it looks like. And I'll zoom in on it so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Move my mic a little bit. Okay, so looking at number 1, what we want to do is we want to identify the 2 points on the graph. We're going to give them numbers for the x and the y coordinate. And then we're going to be taking those 2 points and we're going to be putting them in the formula. So let me change my color to blue. First of all, I want to figure out what this point is. And then I want to figure out what this point is. So looking at this point, we always identify points by x comma y, right? The x coordinate is always going to come first, and the y coordinate is always going to come second. So looking at this point, how far to the right did I need to go to get there? Well, I had to go to the right once, right? So if I'm going right once, my x coordinate is going to be positive 1. So I go to the right just once. Now, the next question is to find your y. You're trying to figure out how far up or down you have to go to get to the point. So how far up do I need to go? Well, I need to go 1, 2, 3. I needed to go 3 points up. So my y is going to be a positive 3. Okay? So that's the first point, 1 comma 3. Now what I want to do is I want to look at this next point. And this time I'm going to have to go to the left to get to it. And as you know, if we go to the left, that's going to be a negative number for the x. So how far to the left do I have to go? I have to go 1, 2, 3. 3 points to the left. So my x coordinate is going to be a negative 3. My x coordinate is going to be a negative 3. Now for the y, how far up do I need to go? I need to go up 2, right? 1, 2. So I'm going to put a positive 2 in there. Great. So those are my 2 points. So now I'm going to take those 2 points and I'm going to put them in the slope formula. And we'll figure out what the slope of this line is going to be. Okay? So I'm going to go back to my notebook paper and I'm going to write down the 2 points that I found. 1 comma 3, and negative 3 comma 2. Okay, so looking at this, I know that my first point is going to be x1, y1, and my second point is going to be x2, y2. The x coordinate always comes first. So when I put it in the formula, I'm going to have y2 minus y1 on top, and I'm going to have x2 minus x1 on the bottom. Okay, so y2 minus y1, that's going to be 2 minus 3. 2 minus 3. And then on the bottom, I'm going to have x2 minus x1, and that's going to be negative 3 minus 1. Negative 3 minus 1. Okay. So now I've got all the numbers where I need them to be. Now I can work out the top, I can work out the bottom, and then I'm going to divide them. So 2 minus 3, that's going to be negative 1. And negative 3 minus 1 on the bottom, that's going to be negative 4. So now I've got negative 1 divided by negative 4. Well, I can't really divide 1 by 4, so this is going to be kept as a fraction. And if the negatives cancel out, I'm going to get positive 1/4. That's my answer. So this is a positive fraction, right? That means my slope should be positive. So now, going back and looking at the graph, notice that the line goes up, so it's got a positive slope. So that helps me to check my answer. This is going to be a positive slope. Okay, so let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's number 1. Now let's take a look at number 2. Number 2. Okay, so number 2, we're going to look at the graph. We're going to take down the 2 points, and then we're going to feed them into the formula to figure out what the slope is. So looking at number 2 right here, and I'll zoom in on it so we can see it a little bit better. It looks like we have a negative slope this time, and that's because the line is going down from left to right. So let's identify what our points are. What would this point be? Well, I have to go to the right twice to get to it, right? So I'm going to the right twice. So I'm going to have 2 comma something. Now, how far down do I have to go to get to that point? I have to go down 3, right? 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be a negative 3. Okay? So that means I'm going 2 to the right and 3 down. Now let's look at the next point. Starting from the origin, how far to the left do I have to go to get to it? Well, I only need to go to the left once, and then I'm there. So I'm going to have a negative 1 for my x since I'm going left 1. But then, do I have to go up or down to get to it? No, I don't have to go up or down any. So I'm going to put a 0 right here. So those are my 2 points. And we're going to take those 2 points and we're going to put them into the slope formula. So heading back to our paper, I'm going to write my 2 points down. We have the 2 points, 2 comma negative 3 and negative 1, 0. Okay. So these are what my 2 points are going to be. Now to put them in the formula, I'm going to subtract the y's on top. That means I'm going to have 0 minus negative. I'll put that negative 3 in parentheses because I have 2 different negative signs. Then on the bottom, I have to subtract my x coordinates. That's going to be negative 1 minus 2. Negative 1 minus 2. Okay. So now I've got all the numbers where I need them to be. I just need to simplify it a little bit. So on the top, this is actually going to give me a positive 3 because the negatives are going to cancel out, leaving me with a positive 3. So then what's going to be on the bottom? It's going to be a negative 3, right? Because I'm doing -1 minus 2. And then 3 divided by -3, that's going to be -1. That's my answer. So since I get a -1 for my answer, my slope is negative. So this is negative slope. Negative slope. That means that my line is going to be going down from left to right. And if we take a look at the graph again, indeed, it does go down. So it kind of matches up. So that's the answer for number 2. My answer is -1. Okay. Now we're going to skin 4 and we're going to go to 5 and 8. So we're going to do number 5 next. And I am skipping around because I do need to talk about the zero slope and the undefined slope. So let's do number 5. I'll zoom out a little bit. Okay. Number 5. So let's take a look at the graph for number 5. For the graph for number 5, I have a horizontal flat line, which means I'm probably going to have a zero slope. But how do I calculate that? We're going to get the points and we're going to put them in the formula, okay? Now the first point right here, and it doesn't matter which one you choose for your first point, you're going to get the same answer regardless, but I'm going to choose this to be the first point. So what's the x-coordinate of this point? Well, I need to go to the right how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be a 4. Now, how far down do I need to go? I need to go 1, 2, 3. So I'm going down 3. That's how I get that -3. Okay, so that's my first point. My second point is all the way over here. So I need to go left 2 and down 3. I need to go left 2 and down 3. So that's going to give me -2, -3. Those are my 2 points. So what you'll notice is the y coordinates are actually the same. You see that? That means when we do the slope formula on the top of the fraction, we're going to get a 0. And that kind of helps you to realize, hey, this is going to be a zero slope, flat horizontal line, right? So let's take those 2 points and let's put them in for number 5. For -3 and -2, -3. Okay. So for number 5, my slope formula is going to be m equals y2 minus y1. So I'm going to subtract the y's on top. I'm going to have -3 minus -3. So it's going to look like this. -3 minus -3. So now I can subtract the x's on the bottom. That's going to be -2 minus 4. Okay. So now simplifying this a little bit, on the top, I'm going to have 0. On the bottom, I'm going to have -6. And I know that when I divide 0 by -6, I'm going to get 0. So this is called zero slope. That's how I know that I have a flat horizontal line with no slope to it. Okay? So that's number 5. The y coordinates are the same. That means that the line is totally flat. It doesn't have any slope to it. So my answer is 0. Now let's zoom out and look at number 8. This is going to be my undefined slope. And you'll know it when you see it. So let's look at number 8. Number 8 is a vertical line. Let's zoom in on it. So what are my 2 points going to be? It's going to be this one and this one. So how far to the left do I have to go to get to this point? Well, I got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be, I'll do it on this side. It's going to be -4. But how far up do I have to go? I have to go 1, 2, 3. So 3 to the positive. Okay. Let's look at this point now. How far to the left do I have to go to get to this point? I've got to go 4 to the left, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 4 down. So I'm going to have -4, -4. So that's my second point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 4 down. So notice for this one that the x coordinates are the same. Okay? So when we do the slope formula for this one, the bottom of the fraction is going to give me 0. And you'll see that when we do it. Okay? So let's write down our points. We have -4, 3, and -4, -4. Okay. So using these 2 points, my slope is going to be m equals, we'll subtract the y's on top. So I'm going to have -4 minus 3, -4 minus 3. But then on the bottom, we're going to have the x coordinates, -4 minus -4. Okay. So on the top, I'm going to get -4 minus 3. That's going to be -7. On the bottom of the fraction, I'm going to have -4 minus -4. That's the same thing as -4 plus 4, which gives me 0. So if I'm dividing by 0 at the bottom, this is called undefined. Undefined. Can't divide by 0, so this is called undefined, which means I'm going to have a vertical line, right? So going back to the picture, notice that my line is vertical for number 8. So this slope is undefined, okay? So that makes sense based on the picture. And now the last one that we're going to do is number 10. Number 10. Okay, let me zoom out. Number 10. Okay, for number 10, we can choose our 2 points and put them inside the formula. But this time, I'm going to do rise over run. So you may have learned in Algebra 1 that you can also figure out the slope of a line by using rise over run, right? And this just comes from taking the change in y and dividing it by the change in x. Okay? So let's look at number 10 and see if we can figure out what the rise over run is. Okay, let me zoom in on number 10. So for number 10, what's my rise going to be and what's my run going to be? Because I'm always doing rise over run. Well, if we start at this point and we want to get to this point, we always start at the point that's to the left of the other point, right? So we're going to choose this one. Now, how far up do I have to go to get to this point? I have to go up 2, right? So 1, 2. So when I do my slope, my rise is going to be 2. Okay. Now, what's my run going to be? That's my change in x, right? So how far to the right do I have to go to get to the next point? Well, I've got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to the right. So my run is going to be 4. Okay? And now I can simplify a little bit. What's 2 divided by 4? Well, I can't do 2 divided by 4 and get a whole number. I'm going to get a fraction for my answer. And this fraction is going to be 1 over 2, which is 1/2. Notice that 1/2 is a positive fraction. So this is going to have positive slope. So the line is going up as you go from left to right. So that's another way you can find slope. You can use rise over run. So there are two ways you can find slope using a graph. You can use the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or you can use rise over run. They're going to get you the same answer regardless. Okay? So let me zoom out and go on back to my paper, and we'll talk about your homework for today. Last assignment of the week. Okay, so heading on back to my paper, let me just put this as 1/2, just so I don't forget it.